Community Matters.
Hello and welcome to Many Voices, One Community, stories that unite us across Long Island and beyond. I'm Gaitley Stevenson-Mathews. I'm so very honored to be your host, and what a special treat for me today. I am here with my good friend who is president of Logia, Glen Cove, and such a mover and shaker in the community, Marisa Gambino. Cipriano is your maiden name, isn't it? Right. So a lot of family names certainly here on the North Shore and here in Glen Cove. And we are in for an exciting time in this podcast. And let me first off say, Marisa, I could not be more delighted to have you here today. Why don't you just share a little bit about, I believe you came to America when you were a young girl. I know thanks to the North Shore Historical Museum, they had a wonderful program that you were the person who shared past and history. And certainly the Italian community is such a part of our community. And when it comes to many voices, one community, the Italian community brings such a strong and vibrant and beautiful component to this community. So why don't you just introduce yourself and then share a little bit about what it's like having come from Italy, where you came from, and when you came here.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate that. So I was 9.5 years old. And my aunt, who had lived here already, was a citizen, and she had to do all the paperwork for myself and my family to come. It took about 5 years, and we did have to go through certain criteria like medicals, vaccinations, and making background checks and making sure that And then my dad had to have for work, some kind of work,
sure.
So he was a mason, and then my aunt also had to put $500 in escrow in case my father couldn't provide for all of us. And it was 5 of us, my mother, my father, and I have a sister and a brother, and all 5 of us came at the same time.
Wow. And now tell me this. So again, you were 5 years old, is that right?
No, I was 9.5.
9.5 years old. So you must have very strong memories of that moment, right?
Yes.
And so for you, was it a big adventure, or was it scary, or what was the feeling you felt as a child?
Scary, very scary. And then everybody, when you tell people you're going to New York, the only thing they think about is the big skyscrapers and stuff. But we came straight to Long Island, so we didn't see any of that. But what we found, I say we, because my sister and I used to talk a lot, with the big cars and the big roads, and we would sit outside and be like, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. Is this really true? Is this really like... and it was difficult because we didn't know the language, obviously, so that made a big difference with us as well.
Right, I can't imagine. I mean, I've been fortunate in that I have traveled some, and it's one thing to be on vacation in a country where people are not speaking your native tongue, but to up and move completely to a new place is quite a different story.
Yeah.
I will say one of the things that I love that certainly both in you and Dr. Gambino, your husband, and your entire family, there are 2 things that I love that you all bring to the equation always. One of those is your pride as Americans. When we go to the lodge, we open with the Pledge of Allegiance. The idea that somehow identifying with your amazing Italian heritage, that somehow that eclipses being an American, is not the case at all.
No.
And I will say, and in fact, I want you to share a little bit about what Sons and Daughters of Italy in America is, how you came to be president, and how it impacts our society in a more broad way, but also locally. So, but I love that about both of you and your family. Very much Americans, very much proud of your Italian heritage. And I will say, oddly enough, I feel some connection to the Italian community because I grew up in a little town in the South. And I will say, when I am in the St. Rocco neighborhood or the neighborhoods that are historically Italian, there's some connection with family. And, my mother would call over the fence and say to the neighbor, can you look after the kids? I got to run to the store. Everybody looked after everyone else.
Yeah.
And for me, even though I have not one drop of Italian blood, I love that component that exists so strongly in the Italian community.
Yeah.
So if you will, on that note, share a little bit about Logia Glen Cove specifically, as I know it's the oldest lodge on Long Island, and what Sons and Daughters of Italy in America, what they are and what they do for the community.
So I just want to go back a little bit what you said about being American, and that's wonderful because I wanted you to know when my father became a citizen, we had a huge party, and even before he was a citizen, every holiday the American flag was out, and he was so proud. He was so proud to be here, so proud to. This was the promised land, and although it was hard, that's what I was so proud of. So yes, thank you for mentioning that.
Yes, and like so many immigrants who come, oh my gosh, with their big estates here, whether they were stonemasons,
right,
whether they were gardeners, whether they were cooks. Again, knowing so many from Logia Glen Cove and from the Italian community, that heritage of rolling up your sleeves and doing whatever it takes to provide for your family and build a good life together.
Right.
Everyone else is giant.
Yeah.
It's giant.
So with the Logia, so the Sons of Italy began with Dr. Solaro. Dr. Solaro was a physician, and he felt, in the 1800s, it was very hard for the Italians when they came here. They didn't know the language, and they couldn't get by, and there was a lot of stops, where they couldn't keep going.
And strong prejudice.
Yeah,
strong.
Very strong. Actually, if there was even up until the 80s, I think, you'd still see signs in the windows if they were looking for help, and no Italians need to apply. And we were always almost like turned the other cheek all the time. And I think now it's become a little bit more like we're voicing what happened and stuff like that. The lynching in New Orleans, it was the largest lynching in American history of the 11 Italians who were found not guilty, but then when they came out of court, they were lynched. And that wasn't recognized until by maybe 10 years ago, something like that. But with that being said, we wanted to assimilate very much into the society because we came to this promised land and we loved where we were. And in order for us to assimilate, we lost our language, we lost our Italian names. My father was Michele, and he was Mike.
Right, of course.
So
right.
It was all. Our names were changed. That was years ago, and I think that's what happened to maybe a lot of people. That I know that happened to us. And then Dr. Solaro decided that he's going to get a bunch of people, like an accountant, an attorney, and a pharmacist, a doctor, and they all got together and formed the Sons of Italy to help with these Italians that didn't have that opportunity to keep going. So with that, other lodges came, and our lodge was founded in 1920, and the same thing. Group of 5 men in Glen Cove got together and started the lodge, and my father became part of that lodge, and that's how I started with being a member and kept going.
And what a magnificent lodge! I want to go ahead and interject right now. If people are not familiar with Logia Glen Cove, certainly people here in Glen Cove, it's the case, but not everyone. LogiaGlenCove.com. I believe is the website, correct? So if people have questions, they can go to the website. It is a joyous time at the lodge. Even though I am a social member, so if you were not of not Scottish, listen to me, I am of Scottish ancestry. If you are not of Italian ancestry, you can still be a member as a social member and participate in everything except a few of the upper level executive committee positions within the organization, but virtually you are a part of that organization.
You can make your votes. You can definitely do all of that,
Right.
and we love to have everybody in.
Yeah, and this is what I love. It's about celebrating the heritage of the Italian community. And if you're ready to sign the dotted line to be on board with that, and what's not to love about being on board with that, but if you're ready for that, then it is just a great organization. And as far as Italian heritage, that's if you are Italian heritage, or your spouse is Italian heritage, or your kids, whether they're naturally born or they're adopted, or if they are Italian, all the more reason to be a part of that lodge to learn. And not for nothing, we are sitting here in the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. And one of the big missions, in fact, the major thrust, is to make sure people never forget the Holocaust. Never forget that. And certainly the prejudice that our Native Americans have felt, and the prejudice that Italians have felt, and the prejudice that our African Americans have felt in any number of communities is quite different than the Holocaust, but it's still about, my hope, not only tolerating, but learning from one another.
That's right.
But so important is education.
Yeah.
And whether it's the Holocaust, whether it's the Trail of Tears, whether it's racial prejudice, whether it's the prejudice towards our Italian community, it is so important that young people do not take their freedoms for granted. And I will say that component of Logia Glen Cove, supporting the history, driving home that history, and how through that hardship, a community of people rose above it all and have done such an incredible job in making this country great. You think about it. Whether it's they're composers or whether they're builders or architects, so many. But remembering that history and making sure that we never forget that we cannot go backwards when it comes to prejudice. If it were a negative outcome, I wouldn't even bring this up. But the fact that I thought the St. Patrick's Day parade responded so appropriately. Do you mind if I bring this up?
I don't mind.
Yeah. So just so you all know, this was marching in the St. Patrick's Day parade, downtown Glen Cove. And the thing I will say about Glen Cove, 99.999 good, thoughtful, wonderful, kind folk.
But there's always one.
And it is important that a community or a city or a village not define itself by that very small percentage of people who are not on board to be welcoming of all.
Right.
And as we were marching down the street as a group, someone in the crowd said,
"Here come the gangsters."
Here come the gangsters. Sons and daughters of Italy walking down Main Street, our Main Street, School Street, Glen Cove. Someone in the crowd says, "Here come the gangsters." And I remember you responded strongly. And I thought appropriately so.
I was trying to be nice.
No, you did. You were very nice and you were very polite, but you were also firm that how does this happen in this day and age in a beautiful place like Glen Cove? And I will say someone on the St. Patrick's Day committee responded immediately in a thoughtful way. Certainly the committee would not condone anything like that. But for me, it was such an education and a reminder for me. I like to think I'm pretty informed.
Yeah.
And I can't know. I am not Italian, so I cannot know what it felt like in that moment. What did it feel like?
So, it's just very hurtful because, I married a Gambino. So you could imagine what I would never, ever, if somebody's an Epstein or if somebody is, a Bundy, whatever, I would never even try to say, are you related? Or how is it automatic that just because we're Italian or just because I'm a Gambino or just because that you're automatically assuming that they're in that same role, as these people, and it's almost unfair, really.
It's unfair and wrong.
Yeah.
It's an assumption. It's taking one small thing or one element of what people know and then somehow creating a situation or somehow putting on an entire community something that is just not true.
So in my situation, I was almost 10, and whatever I learned in Italy, I learned in Italy. And then in between, I kind of lost it because I didn't understand anything. And so I went on and I became a pharmacist, and my family was so proud because it was not an easy thing to accomplish. I used to work. I worked 3 jobs during pharmacy school, and I'm just talking about myself, but there's a lot of Italians that did that. And to be called a gangster, because you're following Hollywood, it's like so sad, because there's so much more to us than just being that.
Right.
We're not just food, and we're culture, we're art, we're music.
And a proud, amazing culture. Yeah. And again, so much a part of not only our fabric of life here in the Northeast, but across our entire nation. And I will say again, I thought your response was so spot on, and you were not vindictive, you were not striking back, but you were very clear. And again, I cannot say enough. I thought the response from the committee was appropriate and beautifully done,
they were very nice.
And how it should be, and certainly, not something they would ever condone.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a reminder for this, young man who grew up in the South with very few Italians, quite frankly, so I didn't have an exposure to that community, but to realize that prejudice still exists. And that's why wherever it rears its head, we have to be watchdogs, and we have to call it for what it is. And giant shout out to you for doing that. You know this. I have such respect for you.
Thank you.
But in that moment, my respect really grew even more.
So I wasn't to the committee. Obviously, they invited us, so we're always happy to join. And whoever does anything, if they invite us, we really try to join in. It was really to only that person who said that, because I really wanted to educate him. And let him know that that's not something that we would have ever done to the other way around. So
I think about my mother would say, "Not okay."
Yeah,
and you do have to say it's not okay.
Yeah.
And again, you did it appropriately. There was no blaming the parade committee, none of that. And again, you and I both know we've got a wonderful community here on the North Shore in Long Island. But there certainly is sometimes, as you say, one bad apple who when we hear the wrong thing, we have to point it out. And we know that so vividly here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. So we also respect when that happens, and that is so spot on. I want to switch gears a little bit. Okay. I want to chat a little bit. I know you and I were talking about, there was a film that I loved it. We showed it at the Logia, Glen Cove, I think 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. Tell me about that film, and tell me a little bit about it. And people, when you hear about it, look for it online. You can find the film a lot of different places.
Yes. So with the Sons of Italy, we have the CSJ, which is Commission of Social Justice for the Italians, and it's the anti-defamation part of the Sons of Italy. And Vincent Marmoral, who's who actually created the documentary and did all his research about Gino Battaglia, who was a professional cyclist. And during the Holocaust, he would cycle all over the towns everywhere, and everybody used to think that he was practicing. In the meantime, he used to bring documents back and forth, and there were so many people that he saved from just doing that. And this documentary is just fantastic, and it's really something to look for. And the Italian consulate was here a few years back, being honored for that same purpose, because in addition to Gino, there was other people in the Italian community that helped, with the helping the survivors and with the Holocaust. And
well, and if I may add, you have the few bad apples, and then you have what we call here at the Holocaust Center upstanders. You have people who, in the midst of maybe suggesting that people conform one way or the other, or to somehow think it's okay to behave in one fashion or another, instead they step up. And that kind of response is certainly, again, the kind of response where we all can look to as an example and look to at how it should be done. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we do have people, yes, we have the bad apples who we learn from, but then we have our heroes, we have our upstanders in the community. Here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, we have a special event annually called the Upstander Awards that recognizes young people. And these are young people from all walks of life, certainly people in the Jewish community, but from all walks of life who stand up against hatred and all of its manifestations. Mm-hmm. That is certainly one of the key components that this center stands for, and that is certainly the kind of thing that is so important. Share with me, I have to wrap this up in about 4 minutes. Is there anything else? I just feel like Logia Glen Cove has so much that they bring to this community. Is there anything else on Logia Glen Cove or Sons and Daughters of Italy more generally that you would like to share?
So what we do for the community, we just had a food collection for Nosh.
Nosh right? Delivers, yes.
We also have 9 scholarships for high school seniors for the 3 schools, Locust Valley, North Shore, and Glen Cove. The scholarships are academic, and then we do a community service scholarship for Italian students of Italian descent. And then we also have what they call a Dante Award, which is, the Italian language. And we that's all from our lodge. This past year, I decided to do something different with the Italian Heritage Month. And I reached out to the schools, and you know about this because... Yes,
in fact, the superintendent's going to be on the show next month.
Oh, really?
Yes. I know you had a good visit with her.
She was very, very nice. And what we decided to do, so she sent out a memo throughout this district asking for like an assignment from the children. And the high school, they wrote what it is about, their Italian heritage. And in the elementary schools, she had some, an artwork. And 2 of the students, that one came to our lodge, and we made a big deal, and it was very nice. And we did the same with the North Shore. And I'm hoping.
And in fact, you can find those pictures online.
Yes.
Poke around enough. We try to make sure we get those things posted.
Yeah,
it was
we
beautiful.
Appreciate you always doing that for us, Gaitley. And so so we try to get that out there, and obviously they got a little gift, just to know that we appreciate what they did. So it was nice.
I will say on that note, so beautiful to see young people. That is our future. Yeah. And the fact that Logia Glen Cove and your work as president, that you help support that and make that such a component of that organization. And let me say, Marisa, as a friend and as a trustee of Logia Glen Cove, on behalf of hmTV at HMTC, we are so thankful to have had you today. And anything else you want to say signing off?
Thank you for having me, and I hope you look up Logia Glen Cove.
Yes,
and
everybody
become
do
a
that.
member.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a great day, and see you next time.